California is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in strong support of H.R. 5501, and let me begin by thanking Chairman Berman, our ranking member Ross Layton, our subcommittee chair Mr. Payne, also Chairman Waxman, Mr. Smith, ranking member of the subcommittee, and all who have helped to make this legislation an amazing piece of legislation. And I know that Chairman Lantos and Chairman Hyde want to thank us and are here with us, honoring their legacy, because they would want to see this move forward as it is today. As one of the 5 original co-authors of both the initial legislation establishing PEPFAR and of this new bill reauthorizing PEPFAR, I am pleased that we are moving forward. And again, I have to thank Chairman Berman and Ms. Ross Layton for making sure that this legislation is really in the spirit of the bipartisan cooperation that we have moved forward with in the past. There's no other piece of legislation that we will consider in Congress this year that will have the greatest impact on the lives of people around the world. Like many, I have witnessed firsthand many times the dramatic and positive impact of our AIDS programs on individuals and communities throughout the world, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. But it wasn't always this way. Now, 10 years ago, actually when I first came to Congress, I think it was 10 years ago in April, the world really had not recognized the devastating toll that HIV and AIDS was beginning to take on families and communities throughout Africa. Since that time, however, we have worked together in a bipartisan basis on a number of very important legislative initiatives that have put the United States on the right side of history when it comes to this global pandemic. First, in 2000, we passed and President Clinton signed into law H.R. 3519, the Global AIDS and Tuberculosis Relief Act. Now, this important bill was a vision inspired by an idea by our former colleague and my friend, former Congressman, now Mayor Ron Dellums of Oakland, California, to establish an AIDS Marshall Plan in Africa, for Africa, funded through a World Bank AIDS Trust Fund. With the help and leadership of our former colleague, Congressman Jim Leach of Iowa, we turned this idea into legislation which provided the founding contribution and the framework for what we know today as the Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. In 2001, working with both former Chairman Hyde and Lantos, Mr. Berman, Mr. Payne, Ms. Ross Layton, Mr. Smith, we drafted H.R. 2069, which was called the Global Access to HIV/AIDS Prevention, Awareness, Education, and Treatment Act. This was the first bill that dared to provide large-scale antiretroviral therapy to people living in the developing world. Although we made progress in advancing this legislation through Congress in 2001 and 2002, we weren't able to reach a conference agreement with the Senate before the 107th Congress. Thankfully, however, our discussions would lay the foundation for quick action in the next Congress. So at the end of 2002, the Congressional Black Caucus, along with practically every advocacy group in the United States, sent a letter to President Bush urging him to set up and create a presidential initiative on AIDS, especially for sub-Saharan Africa. In January of 2003, the President took up our cause, understanding the growing sense of urgency that had been building for years. His promise of $15 billion during his State of the Union address provided the impetus that we needed to pass H.R. 1298, the United States Leadership Against HIV/AIDS, Tuberculosis, and Malaria Act of 2003, which created PEPFAR. In 2005, we took yet another step forward when we recognized that our foreign assistance programs did not adequately address the needs of children orphaned or made vulnerable by AIDS. So working again with former Chairman Hyde and Chairman Lantos, we passed and the President signed H.R. 1409, the Assistance for Orphans and Vulnerable Children in Developing Countries Act. So, Madam Chair, I lay out some of the history of our work on this important issue because it speaks volumes about what is possible when we come together in the spirit of bipartisan compromise as we honor the great legacy of both Chairman Lantos and Chairman Hyde through this legislation. Chairman Lantos, I know, very much wanted to reach a bipartisan compromise on this bill, as did Chairman Hyde. I'm saddened that both of them are not with us to witness this moment, but I know that they are very pleased with what we have put together today. Let me especially take a moment to, may I have an additional minute, please? Mr. Chairman, may I have an additional minute?
Gentlewoman's time has expired.
I yield the gentlelady an additional
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The gentlewoman is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you. As a former member of the staff here on Capitol Hill for 11 years, I have to mention some of our staff members' names particularly because they did a phenomenal job in this. Dr. Pearl Alice Marsh, of course, Kristen Wells, David Abramowitz, Peter Yale, Bob King, Yelim Poblit, Mark Gage, Joan Condon, Heather Flynn, Sherry Rickett, Naomi Seiler, Jessica Boyer, and of course Crystal Santos of my staff. These staff members and other members, their work deserves really to be applauded because this was not just work as a professional on the Hill. This is part of their life's work, and I have to thank them again for their diligence and their competence. This is a bipartisan compromise, so there were things that we had to give up and things that our colleagues on the other side of the aisle had to give up, but that's what compromise is all about. Let me just mention a few of the items that were included in this bill. Of course, it included language taken from my bill, H.R. 1713, the Pathway Act, to strike the 33% abstinence until marriage and provide a comprehensive prevention strategy to address the needs of women and children. It also includes language taken from my bill 3812, the African Health Capacity and Investment Act, to build health capacity by recruiting, training, and retaining health professionals and strengthen health systems. Now, of course, there's still some issues I think need to be addressed, which aren't in this bill. I think we should eliminate the prostitution pledge, which violates the First Amendment and poses an unnecessary barrier to organizations that work with sex workers. I think we need to recognize the public health benefits of linking our HIV and AIDS programs with family planning services by eliminating ideological restrictions imposed by the global gag rule. I think we need to end the unjust and discriminatory travel and immigration ban on people living with HIV and AIDS who wish to enter into the United States. So these are not impossible goals, but in addition, we should fully fund the recruitment, training, and retention programs for health professionals with a focus on training doctors and nurses to build health capacity and strengthen healthcare systems. So I hope that we can do this as we move forward. Let me again thank the chairman for his leadership in addressing the greatest humanitarian, national security, and public health crisis of our time.